When I was 18 years old, or in my late teenage years, I would watch videos on YouTube of guys who were significantly more successful than me, who were only slightly older than me. People in their late teenage years or early 20s making millions and millions of dollars with an audience and being really successful. And when I was 18 and I was watching these videos, I would constantly ask myself, like, what do these guys have that I don't? Because they look similar to me, they're the same age, and they talk similar to me, and they're from the same sort of background and place. So why is it that some guys who are just ever so slightly older than me, so much more successful? What do they have that I don't? And this would frustrate me to no end, and I thought, if only I knew what they knew. Are they scamming people? Is it a specific business model? Are they in a certain cult or something? I could not for the life of me figure out what it was that these YouTubers and these guys on Instagram had that had these cars and Ferraris and houses that I didn't. And that was 8 years ago. And fast forward 8 years now, I'm 26 years old, and I figured it out. I actually found out what these gurus or these guys have, these millionaire young dudes that talk about making money online, that the masses don't. And now I've kind of flipped the script. I'm on the other side of the glass. When I used to watch these videos, it would kind of feel like it was me versus them. I'm this kid, I don't know anything, and I'm watching this guy who's not much older than me, who's really showing me up financially, and that would really piss me off. So now I'm in the position where I am one of those YouTubers, and I make those videos, and my audience is who I was. I'm going to share with you what I did to effectively change my life and become this successful millionaire person that you might want to become as well. Now, this is a picture of me at 18 years old. And basically, what I was doing in this picture is making cold calls for my first business in my sister's art shed. So you can see here, I've got 3 jumpers on. You can see some PVA glue and some painting equipment in the back here. And this was in December in the UK, so it's pretty cold. And I'm sat here with my headphones. In fact, let me just take this off. I'm sat here with my headphones on my desk and my laptop on Skype making cold calls. And I got my dad to take a picture of me in this moment because this was a pretty low point of my life. I had no money. I was a complete loser. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't really have any social life. I was addicted to video games. I was never a total degenerate. I was never into weed or alcohol or anything bad like that. But I had all these bad habits, the bad habits that you see of a typical modern man. And I don't really recognize this kid anymore. And this kid, he kind of did this work thing and something cool happened and I ended up a millionaire, with some luck, right? So what we're going to do, you might be wondering, actually, before I get into what we're going to do, why I've got a map of World War II on my whiteboard. And there is a reason, and I'm going to explain how applying this sort of thinking can change your life. So let's actually get into this. What I'm not going to do in this video is tell you to start journaling. I'm not going to tell you to start approaching women as they come out of a grocery store to find a girlfriend. I'm not going to tell you to stop masturbating and all this self-helpy stuff. I'm not going to tell you any of that, all right? What I'm going to do is just tell you how to think so you can organize and orient your life in a way that is conducive to you getting extremely rich at a very young age. And I know this works, and I'm going to tell you exactly what worked for me. I'm not going to theory craft something here. I'm going to walk you through literally what I did and how I thought to become successful. So, why have we got World War II on a whiteboard? Well, what you need to learn to do if you want to change your life and become successful is compartmentalize your life into basically components and understand that your life is an amalgamate or an aggregate of lots of little different things. And life doesn't really exist. Your life isn't really a thing. It's just a collective noun or collective term that we use to bag up and collect lots of small components of something to create something. And this is exactly the same thing in warfare. So you should be familiar with World War II and you should kind of know what that was. But what I've got on the whiteboard here is something that we would call a branch node diagram. So branch node thinking is an extremely powerful thinking tool that is used by very successful and smart people, like myself. No, I'm joking, but this is pretty straightforward to do, right? Branch node thinking is where you take something big and then you define and recognize the components of the big thing. And then what you do is you take the components of the thing that's smaller, and then you take the components again of the thing that's smaller. And what we find is that everything in life is made up of these little small things that make up these little small things, that make up these things, that make up this big thing. Now that might seem horrifically abstract and strange and completely unrelated to how it helps you change your life, but it will. I need you to bear with me. So first of all, before we talk about how to change your life, let's talk about how to win a war. So World War II was a pretty nasty and tragic thing, and before we continue, I need you to know that these numbers of battles down here are not historically accurate. I don't actually know how many battles were fought in these countries and these fronts, and I've missed a lot of details. This is just for an example. It's simple, right? So let's get into it. So if you ask yourself, a war doesn't really exist. You can't point to a war, right? It's not a tangible thing. Like, what is a war? Well, a war is basically a collection of battles. Okay, so war is a collective term used to group a bunch of battles that happened in a linear, time frame, and we label all of those battles as an aggregate, as this thing. It's kind of the same thing where if you think about what is a kitchen, in your house, a kitchen is basically a room that contains kitchen-like things. And if you put all of those kitchen-like things into one room, that room becomes the kitchen, right? And this is weird. Let me explain. So with World War II, we had 5 main fronts. So a front is basically a sort of, it's a front of warfare. It's a theatre of war. It's where these battles actually happen. And so when we're breaking down World War II and trying to understand what the hell this thing is, well, really it's a collection of fronts. And so what we had is we had the Mediterranean and Middle Eastern front, North Africa and all those places. We had the Nordic front, we had the Western front, we had the Eastern front, and we had the Asia-Pacific front. And so the first thing we need to do if we want to break down what a war is understand where was this war fought. And so if we combine all 5 of these fronts, we get World War II. And exactly the same thing is true with your life and how you change your life, is you have fronts in your life. You have different components that basically, if we put together, create this thing that we know as life. And what I'm going to do later in this video is break down those components and which ones you can focus on. But first of all, I need you to get the model and the way that we're thinking before I actually explain how to do it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So inside of each front, and I haven't been able to include the Mediterranean Middle Eastern front and the Asia-Pacific front because, well, there wasn't enough room on the whiteboard. Sorry, Rommel, but your African campaign's going to have to wait. He was a nasty German officer in North Africa. Anyway, whatever. So under these fronts, we have countries. So we have each sort of theatre of war where each of the battles would have been fought. And so in the Nordic front, we've got Norway, Finland, Denmark, and Iceland. You would include Sweden as well, but they were actually neutral for a large portion of the war. And Finland, they sided with... Anyway, I'm not going to get into details. But anyway, so we have the Nordic front. Some people would say that this is the Western front, but you can break it down. Then we have the Western front. So this is fought in places like Belgium, France, Netherlands, Britain, etc. Obviously, Luxembourg, more countries as well, but we haven't got enough room. And then we've got the Eastern front. And here we've got Poland, we've got the Soviet Union or Russia, and then places in Eastern Europe like Hungary, Romania. Once again, there's more, but I can't fit them all. And then we have the Asia-Pacific front, which is going to be made up of all of these islands in the Pacific that the Americans fought over. And so what we've got is if you combine all of these countries together, then we have effectively World War II. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, because what we can then do is we can break down each front into the countries fought, and then we can break down the countries fought into battles. So here's the thing. How do you win a war? Well, you win a war by winning the fronts. But how do you win a front? Well, you win the fronts by winning the countries on the front. And how do you win the countries on the front? By winning all the battles, or the important battles, inside of those countries. And so when we think about how to win a war, or how to do something in the macro, like change your life, or win a war, it comes down to the little things. And it comes down to summing up lots of small little victories to sum up a bigger victory, to sum up an even bigger victory, to win the whole thing. And so the way that you change your life, and the way that I understand it now, having actually gone from this sort of zero to hero, having gone from this dude who knows nothing about life or business or money to someone who I've made more than $30 million now, and I'm healthier than I've ever been before, and I'm happier than I've ever been before. I've got a sick life. My life is amazing. And this kid did not have an amazing life. And so how you undergo these macro transformations is not by trying to win a war or a front or even a country, it's just by focusing on the little battles day by day and one thing at a time. How do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time is the kind of phrase. And I'm going to talk to you about how to do this in a second, but it gets even deeper. You didn't expect that one. Well, maybe you did, because you've actually seen me walk away from the whiteboard. I thought it'd be a grand reveal. So the thing is that inside of the battles, inside of the countries, inside of the front, we have the skirmishes. And so a skirmish in warfare, as I'm defining it, and this is not a historically accurate term, a skirmish is basically when two people of opposing forces, there's a voice crack, that's absolutely horrifically embarrassing at 26 years old, but two people, I'm a little bit sick, you can forgive me, two people of opposing forces fight. So that's what a skirmish is. So if you're in a group of 5 soldiers, and let's say you're fighting in Narvik in Norway, in the 40s or whatever, and you're having one of these battles in Norway, and there's a group of you and 3 of you guys, and you're doing a patrol, and then there's another patrol from the Axis German forces, and you guys have a fight. That's a skirmish. And a battle is basically an aggregate of all of these skirmishes. And so if we want to win a battle, we win the skirmishes. It's as simple as that. And the thing is that you have to understand is that these battles and these countries and these fronts and these skirmishes, they all have priority. And so, there's an example from Narvik. I can give you an example. So Narvik, I'm probably mispronouncing the name, but it's a place in Norway. And there was a battle in Norway in World War II in Narvik. And what the Norwegian and Allied soldiers had to do was try and basically blow up like a railway line so that the Germans couldn't pass ammunition and munitions through to their army. And this would be considered a skirmish. It's a mini operation. It wasn't mini, it was pretty gargantuan, but in contrast to the scale of the war, it was small. And what they had to do was they had to go in and blow up this railway line, and that's like a skirmish, right? Something small. And it was a very, very significant skirmish, because if you mess that up, then suddenly the Germans have supplies and munitions to push on up the country, and now they've got supplies for their Nordic front. And so the point I'm making here is that the way we win a war is by winning fronts, by winning countries, by winning battles, by winning skirmishes. But not all skirmishes are born the same. Not every little, combat, or not every single little face-off, so to speak, or operation inside of the field is weighed up the same in terms of the amount of leverage it has towards winning World War II. So, some examples I can give you here, right? So, let's say the Battle of Britain. So really there was only one battle fought in Britain and in World War II, and that was the Battle of Britain, which was between the RAF and the Luftwaffe. If I've been pronouncing that properly, but the German pilots trying to take over the English Channel, because the problem is the Germans couldn't send over their boats and stuff and invade the UK or Britain at the time if the Channel was still in our hands. And there was something called the Battle of Britain, and this was a pretty significant battle. And this might be one of the most significant battles in World War II, and that's not to demean the deaths of millions of innocent, brave young men who fought in these other battles. I'm just saying that if we lost the Battle of Britain, if our boys, if the RAF, threw the bag and took an L, I shouldn't talk like I'm 18. It doesn't suit me very well. But if these guys took an L in the Battle of Britain, I would be speaking German right now, because we would have been invaded and then we'd be in some trouble. Another example, in France, towards the later part of the war, we have the famous D-Day battle.
Okay, pause. Just 1 second. I was listening back to this recording and I said D-Day as opposed to Dunkirk. What an idiot. You'll have to forgive me. I was on 3 ibuprofen, 4 hours of sleep with a fever, and my brain was I was not functioning. So every time I refer to D-Day in this video, please remember that I actually mean Dunkirk. What a dick.
We have the famous D-Day battle. Although you could consider it not so much a battle, but it was for the French, and they really saved their asses, so thank you for that if you're French. Thank you to your great-grandfather, that's for sure. But the D-Day was an incredibly important battle, because if the French didn't save our asses and get us off that beach, millions of, or hundreds of thousands, I'm not sure the specific number, lots of British troops would have died, and we wouldn't have had the capacity or ability to raise an army to defend ourselves in the event of an invasion, or even in the event of, like coming back and doing, like re-invading France and sort of with America and coming back. Like, we would have been able to do it. And the Germans probably would have won the war, right? So pretty damn bloody important, although they wouldn't have beat America standalone. But anyway, whatever. So what I'm saying is that if you want to change your life and you want to make a dramatic shift in the macro, you need to start to learn to think in the micro. And instead of, like, I see this all the time where people try and change their life in one fell swoop, where they do this monk mode protocol or they do this crazy 75 hard thing. And it's like, those things can be useful tools to, dramatically increase and compress productivity in a short time frame, but they're not sustainable long-term solutions. You don't just win a war in one fell swoop. It's a collection, an aggregate of hundreds of battles that aggregate hundreds of thousands or millions of skirmishes, probably more, over the course of a, or in the case of World War II, like a 6-7 year time horizon. So how does this relate to changing your life and actually fixing your life and doing that? Well, it is pretty simple, because if we now know, like, what thinking tool we would use if we were a general to win a war, which is basically, by the way, just isolate the skirmishes and battles that really matter, and then give as much resource as humanly possible to that, so that you hopefully win. There's obviously a little bit more nuance than that. That's how you win a war. So what we can do is we can actually, I'm reluctant to rub off this thing, because it took me like an hour and a half to draw it. Well, actually no, but I was looking up to try and historically get the numbers of battles accurate out of respect for people that fought in them, but Wikipedia wasn't particularly kind to me. So anyway, I'll rub it off in a second, but you can see a war is made up of fronts. Fronts are made up of campaigns, and we would consider these countries campaigns. And then campaigns are made up of battles, and battles are made up of skirmishes, right? And if you win the skirmishes that matter, you win the battles that matter. If you win the battles that matter, you win the campaigns that matter. If you win the campaigns that matter, you win the fronts that matter. And if you win the front that matters, you win the war that matters, okay? Now, World War II is a bit of a weird exception, because obviously there's so many people involved. If you've got more medieval wars or, the Napoleonic wars or something, those are still pretty layered in terms of their complexity. But this thing it's called World War II for a reason, right? So, let's rub off my masterpiece and let's get into your life, which might also be a masterpiece, but that's up for you to decide. Okay. So, I've actually got a pot of whiteboard pens here, in case you're wondering how much of a professional I actually am. So let's do this life thing real quick and figure out how that works. So, in the same way that we know that a war is the big macro thing that we're trying to win, so is life, okay? And we're going to just put this here. So life is this aggregate term, or this collective noun. Well, it's not really a collective noun in the actual sense of the definition of the word collective noun, but this is basically a thing that contains things, and it's a macro thing. And so what we can understand is that under your life, if you want to change your life, you have to change a certain few things. And, really, there's a lot of these things. There's quite a lot. But what I'm going to do today is keep it really simple and talk about the main ones, and you can always think this through in a little bit more detail in your own time to figure out, what I might be missing. But really, the fronts, so to speak, of life are health, and then we've got wealth in the middle here, and then we've got love, like this, and I'm also going to put let's put another one here. I'm also going to put here, let's put paradigm. So these are the fronts of life, so to speak. You've got your health, you've got wealth, you've got love, and then you've got paradigm. Now, paradigm basically means worldview and how you perceive the world. You know what? We're actually going to ignore that one and forget I put it on there, because A, there won't be enough room, but B, it's a little more complex and I'd like to keep this, I want to keep this simple. So I think we can all agree that if you were really healthy and really wealthy and you had people in your life that loved you, that you love in return, you'd probably class that as a pretty good life. And so right now in your life, if you're not happy and if your life sucks, it's probably going to be because you've got problems in one or probably all of these components where, maybe you don't really have any friends or an intimate relationship, or you don't get along with your family, and maybe that kind of makes your life suck. Or maybe you're broke and you're poor and you don't have any financial resources, and maybe that makes your life suck. Maybe you're in debt. Or maybe, you're really unhealthy and you get sick all the time and you're always really tired. And, maybe all those things, right? That was certainly the case for me when I was a kid, right? I had to change all these things. So if we know that we've got the fronts, then what we can remember is that inside of the fronts, we have these campaigns. And it gets a little bit more nuanced than this, because you don't just, in the same way that you don't just change your life, and that life is this collective term for these three things, something like health is also a collective term. It's something that contains things. If someone asks me, if someone asks you, how do you get healthier? Well, you don't just get healthier. You focus on one specific aspect of your health, and by improving that, you then become healthier in the macro. In the same way that if someone said, how do I invade France, which is what the Germans asked themselves, which was a pretty nasty thing to do if you ask me, the answer is, well, you win one battle at a time. So how do you get healthier and how do you, improve your longevity and lifespan? Well, you focus on the little things. And so what we can do is we can break health into these two campaigns, really. And the first one over here that you can see is your body. And your second one that you can see here is your mind. And so, if you ask yourself, well, what is health? Well, it's your body and it's your mind. It's this sort of, these two things I would say constitute your health, because you have your physical health and then you have your mental health. And the quality of these two things is going to make up this thing, which will make up this thing. And so those are the campaigns of health, so to speak, right? And then in terms of wealth, we kind of also have two campaigns here that I can just draw out here. So the first thing is business. I'm just going to put here biz. Oops. The first thing is business, and the second thing is personal. So you have your personal wealth, which is are you personally in debt? What's your credit score, etc., etc. And then you also have your business. So you have your ability to basically make money. That's how I'm defining business, by the way, is your personal ability to make money, right, with a company or a skill set or something like that. And then under love, well, we really have three campaigns here, and I can draw these out. So, we have, if we come down here, we have family, okay, and your relationship with your family, which, believe it or not, is quite important. Then we have lover. Actually, I'm going to put partner, because lover sounds a little bit controversial. Sounds a little bit French, doesn't it? Not that French is controversial. And then we have friends. So, like I said, life is more nuanced than this. But I think if you nail the body thing, if you nail the mind thing, if you nail the business thing, and you nail the personal finances thing, and if you have a really great family, and you have a great partner, and you've got great friends, I would say that constitutes a pretty damn good life. Now, this obviously assumes that you live in a first world country, and that you have access to healthcare, and the internet, and running water and stuff. And if you're privileged enough in this world to be watching this video on a device, then the chances are that's likely. Although you might be in a second world country and at a slight disadvantage, but you've still got it pretty good compared to certain people, right? So once we have these things, these campaigns, which I will neatly write over here. Once we have these campaigns of life mapped out, what we can do is we can start to, let's get my pens, we can start to map out the battles of these individual things. Okay, and I'm not going to write all these down because we'll be here all day. But for example, with the body, and you can just about see me over here, but I'm just drawing. So with the body here, we've got like your immunity. Okay, then we've also got something like your gut health, and we've got your sleep, and we've got your cardiovascular health. And there's lots and lots of things that comprise your physical health, and like there's literally like dozens of them, and I'm not gonna list them all out. But these are essentially battles. So we've got your immune system, we've got your gut health, we've got your cardiovascular system, we've got your sleep system, and all of these things are interconnected. And if I just grab my paper here that I sort of planned this video out to see if I've got any more that I can sort of share with you here. Yeah, so you've also got like in your mind, you've got your stress, and you've got your anxiety, and you've got your emotions, and you've got, things like your depressions. If you have that, I hope you don't. It's not very nice. Then you've also got like your dopamine systems, and there's lots more. Once again, you've also got like your mood as well. I'm going to run out of room. Can you see this down here? Yes, you can. So my point here, if we just neatly draw, this won't be as neat as the World War II diagram, but I'm sure you can forgive me. So my point here is that, like, what makes up the idea of the mind are these little systems. So, if you have low stress, low anxiety, you have good control of your emotions, you're not depressed, you've got low stimulation levels with your dopaminergic systems, and like you're not chaotic. And another one could be focus, in terms of how focused you are. And if you're in a good mood all the time, well then that would probably constitute you having a pretty good mind, which would mean that you've got a good state of mind and you've got good mental health, which means that some way, shape or form your life is better. And so the same thing is true, with your business. You've got these little battles like your cash reserves, cash flows. You've got your team in here, you've got your skill sets, there's lots, there's once again, there's going to be dozens and dozens of things here. You've got like you've got your product, you've got your reputation, you've got your brand, you've got a lot of things here. And so, when we think about something like a business isn't really real. A business isn't like, you can't point to a business. It's a collection of lots of small things, and if all of those small things are in good stead, then the business will be in good stead. And then the same thing with your personal, thing. You've got your savings, you've got your credit score, you've got your debt, you've got your earning potential, and all these other things that make up this world of personal finance that are connected. And then once again, coming over here onto your family, you've got your mum, you've got your dad, you've got your siblings, you've got your extended family, you've got your grandparents. Okay? I'm going to just keep going and connect all these up. And then you've got your partner. So with your partner, this is like, first of all, do you actually have one? But if you have got one, like, what's the quality of it like? Like, you've got dates, you've got arguments, you've got value alignment, and lots more things, that come under this partner thing. And then friends, you've got like, do you actually have friends? And, you get the point. There's lots and lots of these little things that are going to constitute friendships that basically make up your life. So the point I'm making here is that these things in black are the battles. And these are the things that you can basically win to like win the thing that, wins life. And so changing your life and becoming successful it's not really about like trying to undergo this massive change. It's about just isolating the places that you have the most leverage and focusing on those and just being specific. So, for example, every single person's life has a Battle of Britain, or has a D-Day, or has a Narvik. Those battles that I talked about earlier that were incredibly, they weren't necessarily greater in scale in terms of size or period over which they were fought compared to other battles, but they were extremely significant in terms of the impact they had on the outcome of the war. And like I said, if we lost the Battle of Britain, or if we didn't get evacuated at D-Day, or if those brave people in Norway didn't blow up that train, then the tides of the entire war would have been completely shifted. And these battles have what we would call leverage. And so every battle can be weighed in its stead of how much of an impact does this battle have on the outcome of the war. And so, for example, when like Germany was invading Poland at the beginning, they just swept through that thing real quick, and there were lots of important strategic points in Poland that held out for as long as they could, and if they hadn't, then the blitzkrieg would have happened faster through France. So there's all these little things, right? So what you're looking to do in your life is you want to create a map of all of the battles that you're fighting at the moment, because you're fighting these whether you like it or not, because by having a life, you have these three things, and by having these three things, you have these things, these campaigns, and by having these campaigns, you have these battles. They don't go away, you have to fight them. And the quality of your life is determined by how well you fight these battles, how often you win, and if you're actually victorious in the small. Now, here's the interesting thing, right? So, we are born differently insofar as the fact that as human beings, we are born, and some of us have a harder time with different things than others, right? So what this means is that there are certain battles that if you win, you have a lot of leverage in. So for example, there are people on this planet who are born with a genetic disorder who can literally live on like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And so they don't really have to worry about winning the sleep battle because they've already won it, right, by just being born. Like me, for example, I am extremely low in trait neuroticism as a personality trait. And what that means is I don't struggle with anxiety or depression. It's seldom that I've sort of experienced these before, but I have an incredibly sort of calm and relaxed mind, and I don't have these extreme emotional swings. And so, I don't necessarily need to focus my time, energy, and attention into trying to overcome anxiety or depression because I don't really experience them. And I'm very, very fortunate in that way. And so what this means is you need to look at this, and there are going to be battles that you're already winning. Okay? Once you've mapped out all of the battles in your life, you're going to find ones that you've already won. So like, for example, let's say that you have been running since the age of 8 and you're like a professional runner. Well, you've probably got the cardiovascular thing down. You don't have to worry about winning that battle. And I don't know why I put cardiovascular, but you get the point. Now, there's a couple of battles that I think everyone watching this video should probably focus on if you want to change your life and get the most leverage. And they're not going to be what you think. The first battle with the most leverage that I've ever found is the battle of gut health. Okay? This thing here, if you nail this thing here, it makes, you need to ask yourself, and this is what a good strategic tactician in a war would do, is which battle, if I win, helps me win all the other battles. And honestly, gut health is the one. If you nail your gut health and you nail the state of your gut and you really improve that, all of your body is suddenly way better, and then your mind is way better, and because your body and mind are better, it makes winning all these battles easier. So the first thing you do when you change your life, and the first thing you should focus on if you're trying to change your life, is your health. Now, I'm not saying that you have to work on these in a silo and that you have to be perfectly healthy before you can start a business, because, this kid can prove that that's certainly not true. My diet in this state was atrocious, but I still managed to get to 6 figures. So I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that if you nail the gut health, then your immune system will be way better, which means you won't get sick. You'll sleep way better, your heart rate will be lower, and everything in your body and your health will improve. And I know this to be true because I only up until the last year have had good gut health. So I used to eat all sorts of weird and bad foods, and I was vegan for a while, and that didn't work for me personally. I'm not saying it doesn't work, it didn't work for me. And I would get routinely sick, really up until last year. And so what happened is basically every single 2 weeks, I would get some sort of cold or flu or infection where I'd cut my hand and get an infection, or I'd get an ear infection, or I had an abscess on my leg that got cut when I was in a swimming pool and a rock in the ocean, and that got infected. And And so I was really unwell, and like this was like my immunity was in the bin. Like I had like a terrible immune system, and the same doctor came to treat me every time, and she came to my house in Dubai, and I had this cut on my hand, and then I had this cut on my leg, and then I had this cold, and then I know it's ironic because I'm sick again now, but this is the first time I've been sick in like a year because of what I did. And so my doctor came and she was like, this isn't normal, you're a 25-year-old dude, you're not supposed to be getting sick all the time. So we did some blood tests, and it turns out that I had a immunoglobulin level of 990. The average human being has an immunoglobulin level of 100. So immunoglobulin is a measurement for the body's immune response to, it measures antigens, so it measures the immune response to food intolerances. And so I was basically 9 times or nearly 10 times more intolerant to certain foods than other people. And that's because from the age of 18 until 25, I'd been eating completely unchecked. Like I would try and go through these bulks in the gym, and then like I'd eat so much shit and crap, and then like my body would just like shut down, and I'd get sick again, and I'd get better again. And so anyway, basically, 7 years really or 6 years of just unchecked junk food and crap led to me having really, really bad gut health and really, really bad immunity. And so my doctor did some more intolerance tests, and we found out I was intolerant to like 80% of the foods I was eating. So I conducted an elimination diet, which basically fixes your gut, which I started 10 months ago now, and I haven't been sick since. I've got a slight cold today, but I know exactly why. It's because I've done some pretty stupid things in the last week or two, in terms of my immunity. So I know why I'm sick now. And I'm not even that sick. I've just got like a sniffly nose and a sore throat, like it's not deep. Whereas before, if I was sick, I'd be bedbound for like a week. So anyway, all of that to say that my gut health a year ago was that was my battle of Britain, right? And so I focused on that. And if you're wondering my elimination diet, I just cut out everything except from red meat. So I'm now on the carnivore diet, and it's changed my life. And it changed my life. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't eat, but that's what worked for me. So by winning the gut health battle, everything else fell into place, my body, my health. Now, the other thing the other battle on this health front that is incredibly important to winning is your dopamine levels, right? So you have a system in your body called the dopaminergic system, and this basically tracks your stimulation levels. So different humans have different levels of stimulation requirement, and you should know this, right? So if you, like your body internally tracks the level of external stimulation required for you to feel satisfied and not bored and not agitated. And so, a lot of people these days have this thing real bad where they have to be constantly stimulated in order for them to feel like satisfied or not bored or not agitated, right? So like, you get people who are like eating all this shit food, and then they can't just sit, if you put them in the car for half an hour without a phone, they'd go haywire, right? That's a sign of someone whose dopamine system is kind of screwed. Or we have people who can't, like before falling asleep, they fall asleep like scrolling on their phone. We have people who can't shower without listening to music. We have people who can't go to the toilet without taking their phone with them. This is a sign that your dopaminergic system is radically overstimulated. And the problem with this is stimulation, external stimulation, whether it's from phone or music or food or people or whatever the hell you're doing, whether it's pornography or whatever, it has an impact on your nervous system. And if you're drastically overstimulated, you need to start thinking about stimulation the same way you'd think as food. If you eat loads of food in one go, then you need to give your body time to process that food. Otherwise, if you keep on eating, then you kind of get fat. And the same thing is true with these people who have these drastically overstimulated brains, is they're not giving their body and their brain and their central nervous system time to actually digest this stimulation and break it down and expel the waste so that their brain can come back to normal. And so the easiest way to fix this thing, the dopamine thing, is once again kind of like an elimination diet. So you have your content diet, which is basically, or your sensory experience diet, where, you have these things that you do that just radically, massively stimulate your brain. And if you keep that up, like you're just going to become this weird, chaotic, ADD, TikTok brain person that you might already be. And it just fries your central nervous system. Like it completely, it just fries your brain. And then the thing with that is your dopamine, if you're massively overstimulated, then your mood sucks, and then you can't focus, and then you can't regulate your emotions because all of your emotional power is going to trying to like actually digest this information. And then you end up getting stressed because of it. So gut health to the body is what your dopaminergic system is to your mind. And the reason that these two things are so prevalent and important in modern society to get right is because like the Western, or at least I can imagine in the East as well, the world that we live in today is engineered to get you to eat as much crap as possible and consume as much crap as possible, content-wise. Because those two things are very, very profitable for big corporations. Because it doesn't cost much to sell you sugar and processed fats, and it doesn't cost much to deliver you content. But it's extremely profitable, and they can sell it to you at a high price. So if you nail those two things, you nail the health thing. And so instead of like, when you think about trying to improve your health and get healthier, stop trying to do 100 things at once. Like you can imagine like this is in the same way that like, let's say that you're a general and there are 20 battles that you're fighting. But one battle or two battles, if won, wipe out the entire campaign. Like if you can lose 18 battles, but if you win just these two, then you're going to win the campaign and you're going to win the war. A smart general or a smart tactician would send 90% of his resources towards the two battles that actually matter. And that's the point I'm trying to make here, is you can't like do this monk mode thing. It doesn't work where, suddenly everything in your life suddenly becomes perfect, because you're just not that guy. You can't sustain that level of discipline and willpower. Your brain just won't allow for it. Okay, it's great in the short term, but my point is this. I see people try and turn their life around, their health around, then they out of nowhere, they start running, then they also start eating really clean, then they start going to the gym, then they also start meditating, then they bring their screen time down to nothing, and then also they start doing therapy and they start journaling, and then it's like they try and take on 10 battles at once. No general has the capacity, mental power, or resources to just suddenly fight 10 really important battles all at the same time. What they do, if they're smart, is they isolate the battles that are incredibly important, that if won, bring everything else into check, okay? And, this is demonstrated by like a Battle of Britain. If Churchill, who was the Prime Minister at the time of World War II, and if you didn't know that, bloody shame on you, if Churchill didn't have the wit, it wasn't really wit, if he didn't have the intelligence to gather up all the civilian fishing trawlers and boats to get the boys off the beach in D-Day, then we'd be in some real trouble. And Churchill spent like months of his life or weeks of his life with his sole focus and intent on how to win D-Day. He wasn't concerned with what was going on in the Netherlands or what was going on in the Mediterranean front. He had people worrying about that for him, but as a leader, his main priority was just one battle. During the biggest war in history, he focused on one thing for a long time in terms of time compression against warfare. And it's a damn good job he did, and it's a damn good job he found that solution, and that's that. It's funny, he wanted the Americans to help, but they didn't want to get involved yet. They said that if he wanted to like borrow some boats off them, some destroyers, but they were like, we're not getting involved, but what we can do is we can tow them into Canada and you can come and get them. But by the time that he'd have gone to Canada or sent someone to Canada to get them, we would have lost D-Day. So anyway, all of that to say, that's the point. Sometimes you have to sacrifice, your energy and stop trying to fix everything at once just to fix the one thing that if fixed gives you leverage, right? And so the same thing is true, when we look at business, right? So, you can isolate the important thing. So for example, in business, the asymmetric battle, or the thing that you need to win if you really want to make lots of money, is the product. And this has been, my central point of focus in my company, since I started it the new company 4 years ago. I believe that if you get a good product, everything else falls into line. Because in the same way that gut health impacts sleep, immunity, and cardio, the product, we've got reputation, we've got brand, we've got team, we've got cash flows, reserves. If you nail the product, then your reputation's great, your brand is going to be great. You're going to attract a really talented team, and they're going to be passionate because they're selling something good. And on top of that, you're going to get more cash flow and have more cash reserves because well, people are actually buying your thing because it works, right? And so, the other thing that obviously you need to watch out for in business is your cash flows. This is really the only metric that we focus on in business, is like how much cash is actually coming into the account. But it's the same thing, like how do you build a business or how do you grow a business? Well, you segment it into its components, and then you bring those components into their little components, and then you win the little components to win the big components. And so if you remember earlier, in the war, for example, I said that each battle has a series of skirmishes. And this is very true, and we'll talk about this in a second. But anyway, same thing is true with your personal, your personal finances, with your family as well. So let's say that, your love life, and I'm referring to love as the collective emotional connection and experiences you have with the entirety of the humans in your life. Let's say that, you get along with your siblings, you get along with your extended family, you get along with your grandparents, you get along with your dad, but your mum, you don't get along with. Now, I'm blessed in the fact that I get along with my mother really well, and she's absolutely wonderful, and if you're watching this, Mum, I love you. But usually, there's going to be like one person in this sort of love thing that you don't get along with. And if you get along with them, then suddenly everything's going to be better, because if you get along with your mum, she might get along better with your dad, and then your siblings, and then these things are all connected. Same thing with your partner, right? Let's say that, you've got your relationship with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or your person friend, I couldn't care less. Anyway, you've got your partner, and your relationship is segmented into dozens and dozens of different components. And so, let's say, for example, that, arguments. Let's say that you always argue, and this is a thing. It's like, if you just stop arguing and you can actually start to listen to each other, because an argument is a breakdown of communication due to lack of listening, really. It's a book called Crucial Conversations that I read about 7 years ago on arguments and how to have them, and why I remember that, I don't know, but it seems to be quite handy in this moment. But if you nailed the arguments thing, maybe that was the one thing, then you actually start communicating, you actually start being honest, and suddenly you can actually enjoy your dates, and your values start to align more because you understand each other's values instead of arguing about them. This is my point. You find the thing where the leverage lies, and you fix that, and then bang, you win the war. Same thing with your friends. Maybe you get along with certain ones or whatever. So this is basically the map, okay? And you need to learn to think in macro and micro. This is what this is called, by the way. We've got macro, we've got micro. We've got macro, we've got micro, we've got macro, we've got micro. So macro is basically entity that contains micro, and micro is component of macro, and it exists at lots of different levels like this. And so how do we actually do this? So now that you understand the thinking tool and the thing that matters, we're going to talk about how to actually act these things out and how to actually change your life. Okay? So in the same way, by the same sort of theme, we've got the same diagram we're going to keep walking through, okay? So we've got life, but this time you've got your lifespan, like so, okay? Now, the funny thing about the lifespan, or your life, is it's made up of decades, right? And so, let's just say we do like this, okay? So we've got decade 1, and we've got decade 2. Now, I'm only putting 2 decades here because the chances are is you're still in your 20s, or you haven't even been on this planet for 2 decades yet. My audience is between 18 to 30, so you could have another decade here, but you get my point, right? So far, your entire lifespan might have been made up of 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe more, 4, 5, 7, 8 decades, I don't care. If you're 80 years old watching this video, welcome. But then your life is made up of decades, right? And so, each decade contains years. And so, on this front, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And these are all years in your life. Okay, and let's just draw this one out. And then inside of each year, as you should be aware if you've been, kind of paying attention, inside of each year, we have these things called months, Okay, we've got 12 months in each year. And obviously this is going to apply for every single year. But I'm not going to draw all of these because it would kind of just be completely inappropriate. And then we keep going. Inside of each month, we have 4 weeks. And then inside of each week, you see where I'm going with this, right? But it's pretty important. Inside of each week, you can still see this, yes you can. We obviously have 7 days. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then, I don't know if you can see this here, I'm hoping you can because it's a bit of a light pen. Inside of each week, not even week, where are we? So you've got lifespan, decade, year, month, week, day. And then, we kind of go 1 to 24. We've got 24 hours in a day, right? And then inside of each hour, we've obviously got 1 to 60 minutes. And inside of each minute, we've got 1 to 60 seconds. You get the point, right? So the point I'm making here is that when you think about your life in its aggregate and the amount of time that you spend on this planet, well, what you can do is you can look at it in decades. So, for example, I have nailed my 20s. So, in the decade of my life, I'm only 26 now, so I've got 4 more years to go. So maybe I'll mess it all up. Who knows? But in the scheme of things, from 20 to 30, that's a decade. And if you win a decade, and a decade is net positive in your entire lifespan, then your life is going to be better. A decade is kind of like a campaign in warfare, where this is like a pretty big deal. This is a big component of your life. So if I nail, actually, no, I'm an idiot. That's a pretty strange realization to have halfway through the year. You're probably like halfway through decade 3, but anyway, whatever. So if I nail my 20s, which I kind of have between 20 and 30, then that means that I've won this campaign, right? But how do you win your 20s? How do you win a decade? Well, you win it by winning these little years here, right? So there's 10 years in a decade, and it's kind of impossible to win them all. I've had years in my life in the last 6 years, in these 26 years of my planet, on this planet in decade 3, where I might have lost certain years. And by lost, I basically mean that maybe they sucked. But as long as I win the years that matter, that's all that matters. So, for example, when I was 21, this was when COVID hit. Was it 2018? Anyway, let's just say it hit when I was in my 20s, right? So let's say that year 1 is when COVID hit. And so this became an incredibly important year for me, and this became an incredibly asymmetric battle because my business suddenly, tanked because of COVID. I was working with gyms and suddenly they all cancelled because they all shut down. And so this became a very important battle. And fortunately enough, I won the battle by starting a new company. And, I won this one, and I kind of won all of these years, really. I've kind of had a lot of back-to-back victories. When I was 23, I had a pretty crappy year with my health and one of my past relationships and where I lived and everything, and I was in a really bad place. So, I kind of lost this battle here pretty horrifically, but it didn't matter because I picked myself up and I won the ones after. And so, whether you win, the decade and whether you're up on the decade is basically, how many of these years do you win? And if you want to know, well, how do you win a year and how do you make a year a good year? Well, you make the months good. And so, for example, if in, year 1 of decade 2, let's say that I've won all of these months, maybe I had a really bad down month here where I didn't go to the gym, and these 3 months kind of sucked because I was just undisciplined. But the thing is this is kind of like the roller coaster of life where you go up and down like this. As long as you have more ups than downs, you're going to win. And, so for example, when I was 23 and I had this kind of rough period in my life, and you can actually go and watch the YouTube videos I made when I was 23, got 3 years ago now. I'm bald and I look like I'm terminally ill, and I'm building Easy Grow, my product, and my relationship wasn't going very well, and I was in that sort of bad health stage, and I was in a bad way. But as long as you win most of the months, and there are going to be some months that matter more than others. That's the main thing. So for example, let's say that, during this year, and let's say during month 9, let's say something tragic happens. Let's say let's say that someone dies. Let's say that my father dies. He's actually still alive, thank God. But let's say that my father died in month 9. Well, month 9 now becomes a month of incredibly important leverage, because if I lose this month, in the sense that if I let that tragic event completely destroy me and break me and throw me off track, which it might do for a short period of time, but if I mess that up, it's my battle of Britain in this year, then the rest of the years that come are going to really suck, and it's going to take me a long time to recover from that. And so there are certain months where you have to be, and I know the dad dying example is a bit rough, but you get my point. In certain months matter more than others, right? Like for example, if you're in e-commerce and you sell stuff online, then the month of Black Friday and the month of Cyber Monday and the month of Christmas are imperative months to get right. And you do not want to be caught sleeping and slacking during those months, right? So that's that. Now the question then becomes, okay, well, how do I win the month? Well, you win the weeks. So if you have good weeks, then you have a good month. And if you have good months, you have a good year. And if you have good years, you have a good decade. And if you have a good decade, you have a good life, right? And, so once again, it becomes about, isolating and recognizing certain weeks. Like I said in e-commerce, if your week is Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and you're going to make 50% of your sales in this sort of sales week, then you better get that thing right. Otherwise, your entire year is going to suffer, and maybe your entire decade, right? And how do we have good weeks? Well, to have good weeks, we have to have good days. But this is really where the kicker comes in. This is where it really gets to the point of skirmish. So you know how I said earlier how to win a battle, all you have to do is win a collection of skirmishes. That's really where the work is done. Because a battle is basically just a word given to a lot of skirmishes, in the same way that a war is a term used to aggregate a lot of battles. And the skirmishes, this is where stuff actually happens and stuff actually gets done. This is where the Norwegian troops are blowing up the train lines so the Germans can't get through. This is where the RAF pilots are flying over the channel and actually taking on the Luftwaffe in these air skirmishes over the channel. This is where Churchill is actually strategizing and thinking about what to do for D-Day, right? This is a skirmish. This is when things actually happen, and it's the actions at this base level here that make up all these components to get to the top. And so really, the thing that you have to do to nail your life and improve your life is just have really, really good days. Like these things here, these little 24-hour windows that we abstract into existence and basically kind of make up, because a day doesn't really exist, it's just our way of perceiving the rise and fall of the sun. If you nail the days and you really get these right, then you're going to nail the weeks and you're going to nail this. And this is the thing, when you ask yourself, how do I change my life and how do I make all this stuff, better? It's really intimidating to think about, how do I have a good decade? It's oh, what? Who the hell knows how to do that? It's like saying, it's that quote I mentioned earlier, how do you eat an elephant? It's one step at a time. If you sit down and there's an elephant in front of you and you've got to eat that damn thing, the only way you can eat it is by just getting a knife, a very sharp knife and a fork, and cutting a bit of that bad boy off and just eating it, and just a tiny bit at a time. And that's the point I'm making here, is it's about these days. It's about the day and what happens in the day. Now the question then becomes, and this would be a completely normal question to ask, of how do I make sure that I have a good day? And how do I make sure that I actually am victorious in the day? Because the days are made out of hours, and you kind of get the point, right? But the days, we can all understand what is a good day and what is a bad day. Because if you have a bad day, that means that you've done some stupid shit that you shouldn't do, which means you've lost the skirmish. But if you've had a good day, it means you've done some good things that you should do. And so, for example, if one of the battles that you're fighting at the moment, and by the way, you're going to fight more than one battle in a day, maybe you're fighting the business product battle, the gut health battle, the getting along with your mum battle, the not arguing with your spouse battle. You're going to fight a lot of battles at the same time. But what matters is that you fight as few as possible, and you isolate the ones that really matter, and you just focus on those and you fight as few as possible. Like, for example, right now I'm fighting the YouTube battle. And I just threw my pen lid across the room. That was annoying. But like, for example, right now I'm fighting the YouTube battle. So one of the battles in my business, the thing with the most leverage that I have to win, my Battle of Britain or my D-Day, is making sure this YouTube channel is successful and growing, because that's the thing that's going to feed so much traffic into my business and make me money and therefore improve my life. And so that's exactly why I'm focused on this thing today. And even though I've got a fever, which you might not be able to tell, and I'm sick, which you also might have forgotten about, because I'm quite good at taking ibuprofen and getting on with it, is like, today, like this day here, of this week, of this year, of this decade, if I lose it, I lose a little part of the battle and I get set back. And so every day matters, and you need to start looking at days as these little potential victories that, if amalgamated over a long period of time, move the whole thing forward. And this is what I said at the beginning when I was starting this video, is how, like, you know how like when you watch these videos of these people online who make all this money and you wonder how they do it, they just line up thousands of good days. That is it. It is not this crazy, and I know this to be true because I've literally fucking done it. Like, this is how I became a millionaire, this is how I got rich, this is how I did everything I wanted to do, was by just lining up lots of very, very good days and winning all of my little small skirmishes. A skirmish is basically, in your life, is when you don't want to do something but you should. I didn't want to get out of bed today and make this YouTube video. This is a skirmish. Right now, I am at war with the day. And if I win the day, and I win this little tiny skirmish in my life, this one little seemingly insignificant portion of my existence, but I do that every day over and over and over again, then after 10 years, or in my case it's been 6 or 7 years, my life completely changes. And I can prove this to you because you can see this out of my window there. Can you see that? That's like the palm. So like, I live on this beach in this mansion and I have a pretty damn good life. And the only reason my life is good now is because it sucked when I was like 18 or 19. So, let me just adjust this. I'm a little bit OCD about having both the whiteboard corners. Okay. So that's basically the premise. Now let's talk about how do you actually win a day. Because I think that'll be pretty important. Because it's very, very simple to win the day, by the way. It's not hard to line these things up and to consecutively make these small little skirmish victories. It is really easy. Trust me, it's a lot easier than, being in a trench and actually fighting a war. It's way simpler than that. So basically, it comes down to your decisions, okay? And you can see this here? Yes, you can. Okay, so it comes down to your decisions. And this is pretty important to understand because there is something that will feed your decisions at the top here. And your decisions are either going to go in one of two binary directions. Okay? Let's just get these pens here. And it's going to either go bad towards... This is supposed to be fire, by the way, so let's just pretend that this represents hell. Right? Or it's going to be good. And this star, supposed to be a star, represents your goal. So when you make a decision, which is basically making a choice, we always make choices and decisions in the day. Okay, so you right now are making a decision, an active decision to watch this video. And it is this straightforward. Where you are right now in your life is the sum, aggregate, of every decision you've ever made. So if you think about war and winning a war, what's a skirmish? Well, it's basically just making lots of little decisions. Okay, like, do I shoot this person? Or do I run this way? Or do I do this? And the thing that will feed your decisions, and this is pretty important to gauge and understand if I just pick up another pen here, the thing that will feed your decisions is information. So information is basically the it's our way of packaging reality, basically. Sorry, my sore throat's starting to play up a bit of a fuss here, but I'm making the decision to keep moving forward and make this video. So, information is the thing that feeds decisions. And so what this means is that the secret to fixing your life and becoming successful is about having access to the right information and then also having the courage to make a decision. Because you can have the information, I'm sure you've been aware of this before, where you've known what to do, but you just haven't wanted to do it. In the same way that a soldier, sorry about that, in the same way that a soldier in a trench might know that he needs to, go and run over to the other side of the trench and risk being shot, he knows he needs to do it. He's got the information, I will win the skirmish if I do this, but plucking up the courage to actually act is kind of the hard part. And there's no shortage of information. You can find everything you need to be successful online if you know where to look. So you need to have the courage. But basically, whenever you make a decision, which essentially is always going to happen in the day, you're either going to make a good decision or a bad decision. And a decision is good or bad insofar as the fact that it gets you towards your goal or moves you away from your goal and it pushes you towards what I would call hell, which is basically a worse situational scenario than you are currently in. And we have the goal, which is a better scenario than you are currently in. And so when you're making a decision in life, you can either move towards hell and be an idiot and get a bad life, or you can move towards your goal and have a good life. And the only thing that distinguishes between a good decision and a bad decision is the time frame of gratification. So if you want to know, and I'm telling you, it is this simple because I learned this when I was 18, 19 years old, acted out as if it was true for 5-6 years and got where I am today. So this thing works. It's time frame of gratification. So every decision you make in your life, in this little day-to-day experience that we call life, if you make a decision where you sacrifice tomorrow for today, then you're doing the right thing. But if you make a decision where you're sacrificing today for tomorrow, then you're doing the wrong thing. All you have to learn to do is delay gratification. So if you're wondering what a decision is, it's basically just acting out a thought. And, sorry, I've got like an itchy nose, I've got like hay fever or something as well. Okay, so back to square one, I'm kind of rambling here. Time frame of gratification. If you make a decision where it sucks to do now, but in the future it brings you reward and brings you happiness, then you should do it. But in the reverse, if you make a decision where it sucks to do, like, it feels amazing now, but it sucks later, then that's a bad decision. And so the point I'm making is that anything that brings around instant gratification in your life is bad. And anything that brings around delayed gratification in your life is good. And so whenever you are doing something, on every single day that you wake up, you have the decision to either make the right decision or the wrong decision. And the right decision is the one where today sucks, but tomorrow is slightly better. And the wrong decision is the one where tomorrow sucks, but today is slightly better. And so, for example, like every day you make a decision of what to eat. And I can tell you from having done carnivore for nearly 12 months now, it is not fun to just eat red meat. It sucks. But it's a decision I make every day because today sucks and eating the red meat, I kind of enjoy it now, but at the beginning it really sucks. But fast forward to 12 months, you get extremely lean, your clarity of thinking is impeccable, you can run on 3-4 hours of sleep, and you have an unbelievable amount of energy if you just stick it out for a while. And so that's an example of delayed gratification. Whereas today, I could wake up and decide, I'm going to eat a burger and a pizza today and drink loads of sugary drinks. But that might feel amazing today, but then tomorrow it's going to suck. And what this means is, like, if you want to win all those little days that I had mapped out here, the way you know if a day was victorious or not is if it was painful. And that's really as simple as that. You want to look for these little decisions that put you in as much pain as possible right now, and a better tomorrow. And then what happens if you do that for like 5 years is all of those decisions will compound and all of that pain will compound, and then suddenly you become like a millionaire and everyone wonders how you did it. And it was just because you lined up lots of good days, and every single hour of every single day you were making the right little decisions. like, I can't make it any clearer than that. You win a war by winning the campaigns. You win a war by winning the fronts. You win the fronts by winning the campaigns. You win the campaigns by winning the battles, and you win the battles by winning the skirmishes. And the way you win the skirmishes is by having access to the right information that you need to beat them. Because if you're in a trench and you know that on the right side of the trench, on the other trench is a machine gun, and on the left side of the trench there's no machine gun, then you'll want to go left. And so therefore if you have access to information that allows you to know that, then you're going to make the right decision. But it's also having the courage to go left that matters, right? Although you would want to go right. And that's literally it. That's how I went from this kid, and I'll show you again, this dude who I don't even really recognize anymore, who, I can't even, I look at him and, he was doing the right thing. He was lining up days, and because of him doing what I needed him to do, I am now where I am today. When I was 18, 19, I was in this art shed in the middle of December, freezing my ass off in my parents' house garden, making cold calls with my script that you can see on the desk there with my laptop, and calling up gyms, trying to sell them marketing services. I did that every day for a year. And then I got to 6 figures real quick. And I sacrificed, I just won that really, I pointed earlier how there was 1 year that was just really imperative. We won. And, if you win enough years in a row, then you win a decade, and then you have a pretty amazing life. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to cover in today's video. If you enjoyed it and you found it useful, you can subscribe, and that would mean a lot to me, because drawing that World War II diagram took me a long time. I did it for you, so you can subscribe if you feel like you owe me one. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one after you subscribed. So just don't lose the day, and you'll be fine. Take care.